ready to turn to the purple insert, this is a story that Jesus told, and it's so wonderful of a story, only the Son of God could have made it up. Verse 19. There was a rich man who was dressed in purple and fine linen, and who feasted sumptuously every day. And at his gate lay a poor man named Lazarus, covered with sores, who longed to satisfy his hunger with what fell from the rich man's table. Even the dogs would come and lick his sores. The poor man died and was carried away by the angels to be with Abraham. The rich man also died and was buried. In Hades, where he was being tormented, he looked up and saw Abraham far away with Lazarus by his side. He called out, "Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus to dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am in agony in these flames." But Abraham said, "Child, remember during your lifetime you received your good things, and Lazarus in like manner received evil things. But now he's comforted here, and you are in agony. Besides all this, between you and us a great chasm has been fixed, so that those who might want to pass from here to you cannot do so, and no one can cross from there to us." He said, "Then, Father Abraham, I beg you, send him to my father's house. For I have 5 brothers, that he may warn them, so that they will not come to this place of torment." Abraham replied, "They have Moses and the prophets, and they should listen to them." He said, No, Father Abraham. If someone goes to them from the dead, they will repent." He said to him, "They don't listen to Moses and the prophets. Neither will they be convinced, even if someone rises from the dead." This is the holy word of God. Now, coming to this story, it's important for us to ask a simple question. Why? Why does he give us this story? What's the context? What's the background? And only as we understand that will we really understand what Jesus is getting at. And it had to do with the religious leaders of his day. One small sect was called the Pharisees. Not every Jewish person is a Pharisee. The name Pharisee means separated one. They are holier than thou. And that thinking is still with the church. The Pharisees grumbled and ridiculed Christ. They grumbled because he was rubbing shoulders with the tax collectors and, quote, the sinners who did not buy into their ridiculous traditions. And by the way, Jesus himself was considered a sinner by the Pharisees. After all, he rubbed his hands on the Sabbath, making food and grain. He broke the Sabbath. So Jesus, they reasoned, must be a terrible, terrible, terrible person. And he would reply to them things like, "You invalidate God's word for the sake of your religiosity and your traditions." And you could almost say the Pharisees pounded him to the cross. But also, another thing with the Pharisees, they were, quote, lovers of money. They lifted their noses at Jesus like a bunch of donkeys. And they took isolated verses from the Old Testament. If you are rich, you're blessed by God. If you're poor, you must be cursed. It's kind of like Job's comforters. Job, the reason you are sick, you must have done something bad, and God is cursing you. Of course, the Pharisees forgot about other instructions of the Old Testament. What about caring for the poor, the widow, the neglected? So Jesus is talking to these Pharisees who are self-righteous and hold to only certain little verses of the Older Testament. And that's a dangerous thing, when you cherry pick certain verses. So with that as a background, he launches into this story. It's not an allegory. Every detail cannot be pressed. Jesus is not describing furniture of heaven or the temperature of hell. This is not a sermon. This is what happens to you 3 minutes after you die. He certainly is not teaching if you are rich, you go to hell, and if you're poor, you go to heaven. And by the way, if you make more than $10,000 a year, you are richer. You're in the top 10% of this world. So we are rich. We are rich. So it's a story here of a character, two characters, a rich man and a beggar named Lazarus. This is the only parable with a real name, Lazarus. Don't confuse him with the brother of Mary and Martha whom he raised from the dead. His name means God is my help. And the rich man, he does not have a name. And I'll get to that later on. Lazarus is helped by his friends. He's gave to the rich man for help. And the help never ever comes. But the dogs come and lick his food. Now those dogs are not like going to boxer or Fido, your pet, your lap dog. These are like pit bull dogs, guard dogs. It's the rich man's security system. And yet these wild guard dogs realize this sick man by the gate is their friend. Dogs are really good judges of character. And the usual interpretation of this is these dogs are pestering Lazarus. He's too sick to shoo him away. Get out of here. But something far deeper is occurring. The ancients discovered that when a dog licks a person's wound, healing occurs. So they're not pestering Lazarus, they're helping to heal Lazarus. They even found a dog cemetery in Israel. A place you could go, pay money, and have a dog lick you. They're healing. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. In fact, Lazarus, whose name is God is my help, receives help from the dogs. Those dogs are even better than this rich man. Lightning bolt, zap of thunder, scene switches. Lazarus dies, carried to Abraham's bosom. The rich man is in torment in Hades, or the underworld. Lazarus has a name. The rich man in the parable doesn't have a name. And look at this rich man's attitude in the afterlife. His character exists just like it was in this life. He's utterly blind. He's utterly ignorant. He's utterly narcissistic. In the parable, he doesn't say, hey Lazarus, I'm sorry I ignored you. I'm sorry I didn't give you the dog scraps for a meal. No, he just totally ignores Lazarus, just like he did in life. And he barks orders to Abraham. Abraham, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to say, Lazarus, I'm really thirsty here, and give me some water with the tip of his finger. I'm in flames. But Abraham said, child, you received your good things. Past tense. You already had your good things. You had your fame. You had your wealth. They were all good things. You had them. Søren Kierkegaard, a Danish philosopher, wrote a book entitled Sickness Unto Death. And he defines sin in very concrete terms. One of the problems churches have when we use religious words like sin, you say, what the heck is that? Oh yeah, sin, sin, sin. But I love this definition. It's very concrete. He makes it up, easy to understand. Remember the first commandment? Thou shalt have no other gods before me. So Kierkegaard says, sin is building your life and building your identity on anything apart from God. It's building your life, building your identity on anything apart from God. Well, the rich man had good things. Wealth, influence, but he abused them. His good things became his God. The blessings of God became more important than God. He had them. And now in the afterlife, his wealth, his status is stripped away. And he's left with no name. He's a nothing. He's a no-no. He was his money. Talk to the businessman who shook the world, then he retired and said, now I'm a nothing. Well, if you define yourself by your job, and you don't have a job, then you're nothing. And that's what a lot of people do. They define themselves on things other than God. Professional athletes are counseled, make sure you get a charity to help out other people. Because without it, you're narcissistic and just blow the millions upon millions upon millions upon yourself, thinking about nobody but yourself. What is that thing that defines you? Where is your identity? What is that thing you can't live without? The most important thing. If it's not God, it's your functioning idol. And the fire will begin. It'll isolate you. It'll destroy you. It'll disintegrate you. It's like an addiction. You need more and more and more and more of it. And it gives you less and less and less. John 3:16, everybody knows the verse. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish. Perish. The word literally is come apart. You ever feel like you're disintegrating? You're coming apart. That's perish. Hell is beginning on earth. Jesus came so we could have his life, the life eternal, the life of the ages and the ages. I dare say your temptation will not be to murder somebody. It won't be to embezzle a lot of money. You know what our temptation will be? To turn something very good into something ultimate. To make our occupation, which are good things, into the reason for life. To worship the gifts and the blessings that come from God, the author of every good and perfect gift. To worship those good things. Maybe even children, grandchildren, family. Instead of God who gives those gifts. That was the sin of the rich man. He continues this poor outlook on life. Oh, he's selfish. He's isolated. He's disintegrating. He's perishing. He's coming apart. Look at the next thing he does. Okay, Lazarus cannot be my water boy. He cannot give me water. Tell you what, Abraham, can he be my messenger? At least send Lazarus to warn my brothers about this terrible place of torment. What's he saying? God, it's all your darn fault that I'm here. If only you gave me more information. If only you told me about this. If only you warned me, and I wouldn't be here. It's all your fault, God. Well, that sounds like the Garden of Eden, doesn't it? Adam, it's not my fault, it's the woman's fault. You know, Apple was making a lot of money and they just invented a new computer. When it makes a mistake, it blames another computer. Not my fault. Hey, don't blame me, I'm not responsible for anything. God, it's your fault. Look at the reply here. Abraham says, they have Moses and the prophets. They should listen to them. Old Testament. If they do not listen to Moses and the prophets, they won't be convinced even if somebody rises from the dead. Whether it be a fictional character named Lazarus, or whether it be the Lord Jesus Christ who rises from the grave in Jerusalem. They don't listen to the Old Testament law and the prophets who talked about justice and mercy, kindness, walking humbly with your God. They're not going to be convinced, even if someone comes back from the dead. Now, what in the world are we to make of all this? What are some of the positive takeaways? I remember a preacher class, Dr. Lewis, would say, gentlemen and ladies, don't just scream at the darkness. Light the candle. Light the candle. So what are some good things that we can take from this? Well, unlike the holier-than-thou Pharisees, whose religion separates them from other people, Jesus wasn't separated. In fact, he comes to our world to be with us. For our life and salvation, he eats and drinks. He eats and drinks with people who are labeled terrible and irredeemable. People who are offended by the elitist Pharisees. Christ's followers realize we're not perfect. And unlike the holier-than-thou Pharisee, we know we're not perfect. And we don't need to prove how great and wonderful and moral we are. Our righteousness doesn't come from ourselves. It comes from Christ. It's not a matter of jumping higher and higher and higher, doing different things. It's a matter of Christ and how low he has descended to our world, descended to our lives, descended into Hades, and has resurrected in order to raise us to a new life. We realize a new heart, a new life comes from this living Christ who once was dead and is alive forevermore. And the love of God is shed abroad in the hearts of his people by the Holy Spirit given to us. And unlike the holier-than-thou Pharisee, with the eyes of Christ, we realize we're just like everybody else. We're in the same boat. We're poor. We're wounded. We need God's healing. We will die. We need new life. We need salvation. And in this world, we're able to see the poor, to care for others, just as Christ cares for us. We're wounded, but we're healers. The wounded healers. And as we turn our lives to him in loyalty, faithfulness, and love, those selfish, narcissistic fires begin to burn away. I've done more funerals than I can shake a stick at. And I'm convinced that a person's riches are revealed at the time of the funeral. What were they like? What was their character? Is the family sorry to see them pass on? I know this time of year churches talk about money, and that gets a lot of folk nervous. But it's really a question of what kind of person do you want to be? Will we walk with Christ? Will we be loyal? Will he be the Lord of our whole life? I want to close with what Paul says, but I want to pray. I want to pray the scriptures, which is a great thing that everybody should be doing. Let's pray together. Lord, you told your apostles to charge people who are rich with the world's goods not to be arrogant, and not to be proud, not to set their hopes on riches which are so uncertain, but to put our hope upon you, who gives us all things richly to enjoy. So help us to do good. Help us to be rich in good actions, to be the kind and generous people, ready to share. So we store up for ourselves the treasure of a good foundation, not only for the future, but so that we may take hold of the life that is really life indeed. In the name of Christ, we pray. Amen. Amen. Now we invite Eric and Sarah, the witnesses, to come forward for holy baptism.